Welcome to the Million Dollar Multi-Op Podcast. Here, you're going to find education, entertainment, and a little inspiration on how to get to the next level. Are you a DJ company owner that's looking for the secret sauce? Congrats, you found it.
What's up, everybody, and welcome to the Million Dollar Multi-Op Podcast. I'm your host, David Osborne with BlueprintLearn.com. Today on the podcast, we got a real treat for you. It's Ed Petty with LeForce Event Group. Welcome, Ed.
Hello. How are you?
The audience is feeling a little feisty today. I like it.
I know.
He's a little louder than normal, but I'm here for it. I like the excitement and the energy that they bring. And speaking of, I like the energy and excitement that you bring, Ed, all the time.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
I love yours as well. You are always a breath of fresh air to be around. Always
Yeah.
smiling. I love it.
So I think this is one of those really cool instances for all the listeners out there. Most of the guests that have been on the podcast have, at least in the DJ space, have been owners in the CEO role of a company. But what makes Ed really special and really powerful for our conversation today is that Ed is the general manager of LeForce Event Group, meaning that Ed does a lot of the things that you do in the company, but has a different role and a different title and a different structure in the company. So Ed wasn't always just a general manager. You started what? DJing at your family's skating rink?
My family's skating rink. I was 17 years old. Started DJing there. Just did, other skating rinks, clubs, and things like that. Went into the Navy, did some entertainment stuff in the Navy. And then it was in 1999, I literally backed into the mobile DJ business. Had a friend of mine asked me to do their daughter's wedding. I was like, I don't do that kind of thing. And they were like, oh, you'd be great. You were great in the skating rink days. I was like, that's a skating rink. This is your daughter's wedding. It's a little bit different. I did it. And I had people come up and ask me for a business card. I'm like, I don't even do this. I mean, I'm ashamed to say this. I used my home stereo system to do this with two 5-disc CD changers. And you talk about trying to queue up a song on one of those. And I was like, well, maybe I should. And I've always wanted to be a DJ since I was like 10 years old. So that's how I got into it. And then was able to develop up a business to be able to quit my regular job. And then, it was in tail end of 2010, 2011. Glenn Roush and I, we have a personal relationship. We grew up next door to each other, but we connected via social media in the late 2000s and developed a business relationship as two single op guys, as you do with a lot of other business owners. And we were literally having lunch at a Mexican restaurant. And he leaned across the table and said, I got an idea. And that idea was LeForce.
And fun fact, I only learned this recently. LeForce the name comes from?
It is his wife's maiden name. And as much as people would like to say, we're big Star Wars fans, and that's not to say that on May 4th, we don't lean into it very heavily. But it is actually his wife, Jen. It is her maiden name, which really makes for a cool company name anyway. But yeah.
Skating question.
Yep.
Do you know how to do a salchow? Did I say it right?
I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it now. Yes, but I can. I could.
What? You used to be able to do a salchow? What?
Yeah. I literally started skating. So my family owns a roller skating rink. My grandfather built it in 1961. I'm 56 years old, so I was born in 68. And so I literally, the fact we're in my home office, I'll show you, or my office. Hold on, I'll show you something. I still have my very first pair of skates.
Whoa, that's a treat for all of you. Those are very cute, by the way. That's a treat for all of you that are watching on YouTube and not just listening.
My grandfather gave me those skates for my first birthday, and I couldn't walk yet. So they were like, hurry up and walk so you can learn how to skate. That's God's honest truth. I did the artistic skating, which is what you're talking about with a salchow. And so anything you see like the ice skating, what they call the figure skating. And then I also raced as well, did speed skating. And,
oh my gosh. Yeah. Is there video?
I still skate. Oh yeah. I mean, well, I don't know about when I was a kid, but I mean, I've got pictures.
Ed is one of the most knowledgeable music programmers that I know. And he is very talented in that area. And I think, a lot of your background, and we were talking about this before we started the call, but when you were a DJ before LeForce, you have experience outside of the industry
Mm-hmm.
in other jobs, like in refrigeration. And what other jobs and careers and things did you have prior to coming to being a full-time DJ?
So my father was in commercial refrigeration, basically grocery stores, for 45 years. And so when I became a teenager, you got to get a job, that kind of thing. Yes, I was DJing at the skating rink, but once I graduated high school, you gotta start doing something. So I got into that trade too, just kind of followed my dad's footsteps. I did commercial air conditioning, HVAC, as well as commercial refrigeration, did grocery stores. So that was kind of my skill set, my blue collar trade. DJing until the late 90s and early 2000s was just kind of a side hustle. Not even really a side hustle, more of a hobby. It wasn't until the mobile DJ side I was like, oh man, I can start making some money at this. It was just a pipe dream, if you will. So a lot of my managerial skills, leadership skills came from that, as well as when I was in the Navy. I was in the Navy for 11 years. And so, even managing people, inventory management. When I was in commercial refrigeration, we built grocery stores. So, all of this, the materials that you need and managing the people, because I did advance through that trade as well, got into management, got into sales and stuff. So I feel like a lot of those skill sets have transferred over to essentially a business that I love. And so it's kind of cool that I can mesh the two worlds together.
I think what you just said is really a key point, because I spend a lot of time talking to multi-op owners and DJs that want to run bigger companies. I think, the first instinct people have, and I had this instinct too when I went full time, it's like, oh, I want to bring more DJs onto the team. I want to do more events. And it seems like it's just going to work because you yourself as a solo op DJ have hustle. You've got that grind. You feel like, well, other people will just do that too. And it's just not the case. Maybe you'll stumble on someone who could be a partner or on that level, but for the most part, I've, not really encountered that too much in the industry. And you have to be a manager. And for most people, that can be a dirty word. Like, I don't want to be a manager. Like, I didn't get into this job to be a manager, but it's an entire skill set that has to either be developed before you come to this industry, or you have to find ways to develop it yourself, or in y'all's situation, you are the manager of a larger company because you have that skill set and the background in DJing. Would you say that that's pretty accurate?
Absolutely. And I think that's a lot of early on what worked well with Glenn, and still does to this day. He and I are kind of a good yin and a yang. He's a vision. If you don't know Glenn Roush, he's in my opinion, one of the smartest DJs I ever seen, and he's got the degrees to prove it. He came from accounting. You don't argue with numbers with him. I'm telling you, he's a visionary. He comes up with great ideas or whatever, and then I'll put the reality, the common, like, okay, can we do this? How can we do this? And stuff like that. And I think as a good manager, you can't expect to know everything. You want to surround yourself with good people to help you make great decisions. And that's just what we saw early on. He knew what he was good at, his skill set. He knew what he was lacking, for lack of a better word. I knew what I was lacking as an owner, and I could see that. And so being able to come together, I feel like is what really was a lot of our success early on. And then now we just, we find people and we try to, what's their good skill set, Nate Nelson, he's a great entertainer. When he first came to work here, I called him my retirement plan. But he's a director of talent because that's what he is. He is a talent, and so there's other people too that are great DJs, but they also have other skill sets. So what are those skill sets? And then you can take those and apply them to the business world, because at the end of the day, yeah, it's fun what we do, but it is a business,
It is a business, and you have to have an org chart. You said a couple things. The idea of a visionary. I've read the book Traction, and if anyone out there has not yet read Traction, I highly suggest it. But what they suggest is kind of a visionary and an integrator relationship. And that's what it's talking about, right? You got one person who has just got this big picture, great with relationships, great with, hey, this is the next big thing, or, you know, and then another person who will actually make it happen. Or as I like to call it, it's like it's the hot air balloon and the lead weight. You know, there's someone that has to keep that hot air balloon from flying away, but you got to be aware of your skill sets and be aware of yourself and know what you're good at and what you can bring to the table. And the thing I hear you say also is just really knowing your own deficiencies and being honest with yourself. A lot of people, myself included, tend to feel like, oh, I can do all of this myself, or because that's generally how you start out in the business, doing all of it. And at some point you have to get rid of some of your hats and which hats you give. But so you mentioned a few pieces about LeForce, and Nate being a talent manager. Can you kind of describe the org chart, just how it generally works at LeForce? Like, what are the divisions? What are the different people that are in charge of different things?
Yeah, so we kind of start at the top. You have Glenn Roush, our owner and president, founder. He's just the president, the CEO. He jokes. He just makes sure we got money in the bank to do what we need to do. So he's your typical, CEO of he's not in my opinion, he's not your typical owner. But so you have Glenn, you have his wife, Jen, is with us. She is the director of marketing and things like that. She has a degree in marketing and advertising, things like that. So that's what she does. In 2017, one of our entities, by the way, LeForce Event Group, if you don't know, is the parent company for LeForce Entertainment. Most people know LeForce Entertainment. It's the mothership. It's where we started. But we have 5 different entities, 5 different companies, including LeForce Entertainment. And so LeForce Event Group is the parent company. So one of the companies that we acquired in 2017 was Simply Music, which we've rebranded to be Simply DJ. It's one of our other DJ entities. So Brian Prescott is our vice president, as well as oversees a lot of the production side of it. Myself, like I said, I'm the general manager. I oversee the day-to-day operations of all of it. From there, it kind of branches out to DJ and production is where it kind of separates, and that's where the different entities lie. I mentioned Nate Nelson. He's our director of talent, kind of in charge of helping train DJs. I have an HR manager, Adam Wilmore, who is a retired DJ, longtime friend of mine for probably 20 years. He went back to school to get a degree in HR. And as he was looking for a job, I asked him one day, I said, what would it take for you to quit looking for a job? I said, I could use an HR manager, and the fact that he's from this business. That's where it's really, when you're getting on these people's skill sets, such as like mine with the management and the everything that I learned in refrigeration and whatnot, and him knowing HR, the fact that you know the business, though, that you were a DJ really helps. So you can still talk the lingo, and so he's my HR manager. We have a sales team of 2 girls that one is primary sales DJ, one sales DJ and production. Then from there, it breaks down a little bit more to what we call event managers that oversee. There's event managers for the DJ side. There's event managers for the production side that oversee some of the details of the events. And then, of course, from there, it breaks down to just the employees itself, which we basically have 2 categories. We have what we call DJs, and then we have what we call road crew, which road crew is lighting, production people, photo booth, that kind of thing. So
that is a serious spider web, but it sounds very organized and sounds great. And I've become pretty aware of all the different moving parts at LeForce through our relationship through the Blueprint past few years. You've gotten to talk to Adam. I've known Brian for a while. I've been to the LeForce HQ, well, the old LeForce HQ. Yeah. Now in a new building, but and I know Nate and I know a lot of the DJs on the team. So it's cool to see the evolution just in the short time that I've been around you guys, and just to see the way that it's progressed. One of the things I like to tell people, that the time I visited LeForce, I guess that was 2022, 3, whenever we were there in January, I like looking at the plaques. in the lobby, because they'd say like Glenn Roush Entertainment, bop bop, over and over and over again. Then you just see this clear break where the names just change to LeForce Entertainment on all the
Yeah.
plaques in Dallas. And so it's cool to see someone go from like a solo op journey to build something bigger than themselves, but it's still win those awards, which I thought was really cool. So Ed, you talked about managing daily operations at LeForce. Some of the conversations that we've had have, I don't think you can be pigeonholed into one thing, but what would you say is more than 50% of the time, the tasks you're dealing with? Are they more on one-on-ones with people below, your direct reports? Are they more on troubleshooting systems? Kind of talk us through kind of what your daily, weekly responsibilities look like.
Yeah, I mean, that's a really good question, because you kind of have your hand in everything, but not completely in anything. One of the big things, and it's kind of a skill set that I've learned over time, is essentially putting fires out. And that's a lot of what my job is what's going to happen today. We had some theft of some equipment in a trailer on Saturday. So that was on Saturday morning. It's like, ooh, I got a DJ's got to work tonight. He has no equipment. So I had to put that together. Then I had a DJ that maybe needed to be replaced. And so a lot of it is dealing with, insurance and inventory and changing this and changing that. That is really the key, is just being able to put those fires out, being available and like, okay, I got to address this. And so a lot of times first thing in the morning, I'll go through my emails and go, okay, I need to take care of that, put that off till, and kind of things like that. And then there are bigger pictures of, okay, I do this on that day. So for example, Wednesday is my payroll day. I do when I run the payroll. So I have to focus in on that. Tuesday is when we have our production meetings. We have one for the DJ side of the business, and so I'll sit in on that. I don't run the meetings. I have that delegated. I've learned to delegate a lot. But that's a lot of what I do then. And literally just people will come to me, hey, on the operating system, this email is messed up. Can you fix it? That kind of thing. So I'll jump in. For 25 years in the business, and then, I mean, gosh, I'm going on almost 40 years of being a DJ just in general. I got to live out my dream and do what I wanted to do. And then now I'm, making a living and being blessed in a business that I love, doing a skill set. It's funny. I ran from that industry. I didn't want to turn wrenches. I didn't want to do it. And I lean on those skill sets so much now, of like, oh yeah, I remember that. We talked off the air. Can I mention my hat?
No, bring the hat on. Yeah,
bring the hat on.
This is a hat friendly show.
Right, there we go. So I was sharing, for the listeners, to let you guys know, I was sharing with David earlier that, as I mentioned, I used to be in the refrigeration business, and I'll reference something, like, oh, blah 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 blah, and the statement is back when I was in refrigeration. So about 3 or 4 months ago, the guys put together a hat that says back when I was in refrigeration. So sometimes I'll be in a meeting and I'll start to say it and I'll go, hold on. And I'll put my hat on and I'll say, back when I was in refrigeration, we would bring in all this copper and we would do this. But this for building the grocery stores and stuff like that. So I think it's just a skill set that, some people have and some people don't, triage, if you want to think it in terms of the medical profession, that kind of thing.
You are like a triage nurse. Definitely. It's figuring out what needs to be done, assigning the priority of what needs to be done. What's the most important thing, prioritizing your time, knocking those things out. When I think about really any business, there's kind of like 3 categories, right? You've got your lead generation or marketing, getting more business. What you were kind of saying, Glenn's like just making sure there's money in the bank to do the things we want to do. There's that side. There's the direct sales, turning those leads into actual booked contracts. And then there's service delivery, right? It's like creating the value for the client, delivering what the client bought. And I feel like general management is really focused on that third one. It's the people the gear, the processes, the systems, the CRMs, the everything that's revolved around making the engine run, making the warehouse move, making gear come in, and making it operate is the role of a general manager.
Mhm.
I'm not sure if this is true or not. Is a chief operating officer also, does that line blur into general management, or is that a different thing?
Yeah. You're talking about a COO, and Glenn and I have
Yeah.
actually talked about this when we were, things have evolved, obviously with LeForce. When we first started, one of the things was, obviously I was still blowing and going and DJing. He's like, I need DJs, for this. And so I was obviously, one of the top DJs at the time with him. We were, building the business. We started acquiring DJs, and then we were having to do things. So like he did sales first, then sales keeps growing. So then I started doing sales, and you just keep growing and you do this. And then once you need to move on to something else, you hire somebody or you have to do that, that's just kind of how it keeps evolving. One of the things as we were developing the general manager position, because I haven't always been the general manager of LeForce Event Group. At one time, I was just his right-hand man. I was the operations manager, just kind of that thing. We talked about the COO because that's kind of it. But the level, and I don't remember the definition of it, but it's a little bit more, one of the things that Glenn said, and again, he comes from the corporate world. He knows. He's like, you're still doing a lot of what a COO does not do. And so it's not to say that we won't get there, but it's not there yet. There's still, like, payroll is a good example. I'm the one that actually does it. He goes, a COO doesn't do payroll. He has somebody that does payroll. That doesn't mean that I won't eventually delegate it, but we're just at a spot right now that I still need to do it. I still need to have my hands in there. I need to make sure that, all that, is done correctly. And there's other things as well. So it's honestly, and like I said, Glenn and I talked about it when I got promoted to the general manager. It's not that it's not a goal down the road. It's just we're not there yet. Um, Actually, I think more of a CFO, chief fire officer, is what I heard one time. So I was like,
Yes.
that's it. Put the fires out. So, yeah.
One of the things that happened, in our relationship with the Blueprint, that I saw you go into a realm that I didn't realize was part of your job, and that it helped me understand better what you do, is that, LeForce has been a Blueprint user since the beginning, since 2021, I think, like from the very
Right.
beginning.
Right.
Glenn was like, sign us up. And I was like, okay. And
Yeah.
there was delegated. There were folks running the DJ side very well that was linked up with the LeForce DJ school. And then you and I were on a Mentor Pods call, I think at one point, sometime in the past 6 months. And we had a conversation like, Blueprint does blah, blah, blah. And you were like, wait, it does what? And I was like, yeah.
No.
And you're like, can we get on a call? And so, we got on a call, and you're like, wait, it could do that, that, and that. And so literally, I think within the next 2 weeks, we had broken apart all the Lego bricks of the entire program that we had built, restructured into something that not only worked for the DJ side, worked for the road crew side, but like your involvement in that process was like, well, I didn't know Ed was involved with that. But I'm like, well, he's absolutely is, because you saw the potential of what it could do for the overarching company and the operations to help in another area it wasn't being used in. And I was like, oh my gosh, you really do have your hands in everything. A lot of people, when we go to a place like Midwest and you speak on behalf of LeForce, people are assuming that you are, you're the owner, like you're doing all the stuff, right? Because you're so involved in the industry, you're so involved in all the different aspects. And I think that's just a shout out to your character and just why you are so good at being a general manager.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I do remember that you reached out to me and you said, "Hey, I just want to talk to you about some Blueprint." And I knew we were doing Blueprint. I remember we were at Mini Tank in New Orleans, and you kind of presented the Blueprint. I was like, "This is cool." All right, and it was actually kind of one of my first real introductions to you, meeting you and getting to know you a little bit better. I was like, "Man, this guy's smart." I don't think I knew you were a school teacher yet, or former school teacher, and then it kind of all clicked once I was like, oh yeah, when you're like, well, that's why he's so good at that. yeah, I remember the conversation well. You're like, hey, let's set up a call, let's talk. And you're telling me like, oh, I think you should do this. And literally the wheels started rolling in my head because I knew that we had a deficiency on the production side. And you're showing this video of lighting for the DJs. And I was like, man, I wish every one of my new employees had that. And so that's where I was like, hey, I'm thinking, let's break this thing out. And of course it's grown even more and more. You and I talked about some stuff last week that we're going to be rolling out too, they're like, hey, let's do that. We talked about I'm going to give a little teaser here. You and I talked about a music history thing. And I reached out to you and told you that I did it at our DJ school. And you're like, so yeah, I mean, it's you're constantly, this is what it really boils down to. You're constantly having to think ahead. You're constantly having to project. We talk about, Glenn having the money. There are times that I'll go to him and go, hey, 6 months from now, we're going to be out of photo booths. Like, we oversold. I remember this happened one time. We had like 2 photo booths, and I said, we're oversold in 4 months from now. And he said, but then we talked and he said, okay, so we that, what if, do you think if we got another one, because again, you're in the day to day, you see what's going out, what's not. And he said, what if we bought 3? And I said, okay, I think we could do it. And instantly we went from 2 photo booths to 5 photo booths, and they all started selling. But it was because of me looking ahead, projecting, telling, okay, we need more employees, not today, but we need more employees 2 months from now, 3 months from now. So let's start now. So there's a lot of looking ahead, projecting, visionary, if you will, but just kind of a different side of it than from what Glenn does of wanting to create businesses. And I'm not good at that aspect of it. And that's where I think there's a lot of a yin and a yang. If I still had my business, I would have a few DJs and that's it, because that's what I know how to do. But it's more of like, hey, this is what we want to do. Now figure out how to do it. That kind of thing. I can't come up with the idea of what we're going to do. But then once you say, hey, how about this? I'll go, oh, this is how we can do it. That kind of thing.
Yes. Yes, times 100. That is the perfect way to land the plane on this podcast, because every business owner that is doing both roles, that you're the visionary and the doer or the integrator or the operations or the general manager, you're doing both roles, chances are you got like a 90% plus chance that you are actually much better at one of them than the other. And at some point, if you can swing it, finding someone to be the yin to yang, like someone to complement what you're not as good at, is the thing that's going to help you break through the next level. It's very, very rare that someone's equally good at both. I mean, very rare, but it is possible. But those tag team duos.
If you can find somebody who, and look, you can get creative on your compensation, especially, your DJs, most of your DJs have other skill sets, find out what those skill sets are and expand on them. And there's chances are they can do something that you're not good at. You and I have been on many things together, mentor pods, think tanks, and stuff like that. And we talk about like, when do you hire somebody else? When do you, well, the first thing that you want to think about is, what are you not good at?
Right.
And that's where that person could step in and be able to do that. We just kind of did it from day one. But I mean, we got very creative on my compensation, and there was a point where my compensation for DJ was way up here. My compensation for management was way down here. But the goal was to eventually build the company up to the point where I would retire as a DJ. That was in the plan, which I have since now done, and then be able to sustain compensation just as a strict manager. So,
yes. Everybody who's listening, I think that you have got at least one great nugget out of this conversation. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you, and I'm sure people will run into you at conferences throughout the next year, but tell everyone how they can find you online.
Yeah, I'm not a big social media person, but I just kind of backed off. So if you look at my social media, you're probably going to see like my cabin or my family or stuff like that. But I am. So you can find me on Facebook, just Ed Petty. Then you can also, I am on Instagram a little bit. I more just follow it and, watch reels and stuff like that. But it is DJ Ed Petty. Or you can email me, ed@leforcedfw.com. It's LeForcedFW.com.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Ed. Thank you everyone for listening. As always, there are free resources on blueprintlearn.com/resources, and we'll see you on the next one.